This conference will now be recorded.
So in today's session, we are going to discuss about the future callouts with the help of Oauth 2.0 authentication. You know what exactly the Oauth 2.0 and how can we use this Oauth authentication flows? As part of that flows, we have discussed about the username and the password flow. The same flow I would like to use again, so to implement the future callouts. So first of all, let me explain the requirement. Then we'll see the solution, how to implement that. We'll see the pictorial solution. Then we'll go with the implementation part so that we can understand how to implement this. Now, so in the previous session, what we did, we have designed a visual first page. We have designed a visual first page. In that visual first page, I have entered some case ID, the case record ID. Where after entering the case record ID, when I click on a button control, it is connecting to the respective third-party system or the web service. It is invoking the web service by passing the case record ID, and based on that case ID, whatever the case record is available, the case details you can see inside your user interface. So we made a request, we got the response. But at that time, we have used Oauth authentication 2.0 username and the password flow. There we have prepared an implementation that first of all, we are going to be collecting the access token. First of all, we are collecting the access token over there. And then let me show you that. So we have collected the access token. First of all, by connecting to the authorization server, we are collecting the access token. Based on that access token, we made a request to that actual resource server, and then we are collecting the response. And that response you can use wherever you want. Whatever you want to do, you can perform your operation. That response, if you want to store inside your database, then you can store. Or if you want to display on the visual first page, then you can display. If you want to pass it to some other web service, then you can pass, no problem, whatever you want. Now, so now in this case here, what happened? We are going to be interacting with the authorization server first, collecting the access token. Once the access token has been getting collected, then we are going to be initiating the request for the actual resource. The protected resource we are invoking, and then we are collecting that resource information. So manually we did that. Now, so there might be some requirements will look like this. Let me explain the requirement. Sometimes the requirements will be look like this. For example, assume that we have two organizations. For example, we have two organizations are available. I have two Salesforce organizations, any organization, any third-party systems. For example, I'm having two organizations. So this is one Salesforce organization, and this is another Salesforce organization. I'm having two Salesforce organizations available. I'm having two Salesforce organizations. So this is the organization one. That is the source organization or the provider or the server. So this is the provider organization number. This is the service provider or the server, whatever, simple. It may be source also. For example, I'm indicating like a service provider or the server. So this is one Salesforce organization over here, which I have. And this is the consumer organization. Consumer organization, this is also called as some client, for example. I have two Salesforce organization. This is also a Salesforce organization. This is also Salesforce organization because we are having Salesforce accounts only. That's what here I'm taking two Salesforce. Or else this one you can take it as a Java. This one you can take it as Salesforce also. No problem. Anything, whatever. Okay, one Salesforce and one Java or one mainframe or one SAP, one Oracle, anything. But here right now we are having that Salesforce accounts. That's what I'm taking two Salesforce accounts. So same process we have to do for Java also, .NET also, wherever you go. Now I'm having this two Salesforce organizations are available right now. So this is one organization and this is the second organization. Two organizations are available. Now inside my provider, I'm having an object. I have a table inside this. I have a table, which is a hiring manager table or some customer table, any table, whatever. I have an object. For example, let me take a hiring manager object, which is having some fields inside this. Hiring manager ID and the name column and the phone column and the email ID column. These are the four fields are available inside my hiring manager object. This is my hiring manager object, which is a custom object. You can take standard object also, anything, whatever you want. Here I'm having the columns or the fields. ID field, name field, phone field, email ID field. These are the fields are available. Like the similar way, I have a table. Like the similar way, I have a similar kind of table inside my source also. That means inside my client also, I'm having the similar kind of table is available. Okay, in the source also I have it. So whatever the table is available in the provider, like the similar way, I'm having a table in my consumer also. These are the two Salesforce organizations. This is one Salesforce organization, organization one. Okay, this is the organization one. So assume that this is belongs to some Roshan. Okay, Roshan. So now Roshan is having his own Salesforce account. That is the Salesforce account related to a person called as for example, some Roshan. Next. So now this Salesforce account is belongs to a person. This is the organization. Organization. This is belongs to some Abhishek. Abhishek. So this Salesforce account is belongs to some Abhishek. Now, so now here in this case, now whenever Abhishek is creating a new hiring manager record inside this object, whenever Abhishek is creating a new hiring manager record inside this object, immediately the same record has to be get copied into Roshan Salesforce account automatically. Whenever Abhishek is creating a new record inside the hiring manager object, immediately it has to copy, it has to replicate. Okay, it has to replicate the same record into the Roshan's organization also. Like for example, let me explain a general scenario. Assume that I'm having a bank account. Okay, I'm having a bank account which is in some Hyderabad in some SR Nagar branch. In SR Nagar branch, I'm having a ICICI bank account. Now, whenever I'm depositing the money in some SR Nagar ICICI bank branch, then immediately after few seconds, the money can be withdrawn from another branch account also, or from another state also, from another city also. So I have given my ATM card to my father. My father is from some Bangalore. He went to the Bangalore. So that here I have given my ATM card to that my father. And then I told him, so I will deposit the money into my account, use this ATM card, and then you can go to the Bangalore, any ATM center, you can withdraw the money. So in this case, what happened? Whenever I'm depositing the money inside my account by visiting the Isra Nagar branch, then immediately after few seconds, he can able to collect the money from any ATM center over there. From Bangalore, from US, from Pune, from Hyderabad, from any place he can able to collect them. That means what? So when coming to the SR Nagar branch, they're having a branch level server is available. Whenever a new record is created, whenever a new transaction has been done, immediately it will be storing inside the server. Once the record has been stored inside the branch level server, immediately it will be replicating to that other branch servers also, or the centralized server also. They will be having a centralized server. It may be which is in Mumbai, it may be in Delhi or wherever. They're maintaining the centralized, the server is available. Into the centralized server, immediately data will be replicating. Replicating means copying the data here. Whatever the new record they have created, whatever the new operation has been done inside the branch level server, immediately this will be replicating that centralized server so that from there the person can able to withdraw the money from any place in the world immediately. If I'm depositing that, immediately in the next second, he can withdraw the money from that. That means here, within this second itself, it will be replicating the data to the centralized server. It will be copying. How it is copying? Immediately I want to copy. Like the similar way here also, whenever Abhishek is creating a record inside this, in his hiring manager object, immediately the same record has to get copied into the Roshan's organization's hiring manager object immediately. Then how can we do this? How can we do this synchronization process? How can we implement this kind of replication mechanisms in the real time? I want this real-time integration. Real-time means what? Immediately, on the spot. On the spot. Now, so immediately I want to replicate this data. This is called a real-time integration. Real-time means what? On the spot. Immediately, whenever I'm creating the record, the same record has to be replicated. Then how can we do this kind of implementation? This kind of implementations are very, very common in the real time. Whenever I'm creating a record inside my Salesforce account, immediately the same record has to copy it into the CBEL also, CBEL application or Java application, .NET application, mainframe application, SAP application, anything. Then how can we do this one here? How can
Sir,
we implement this kind of functionality? Yes.
sir, in this case, both the servers or both the organizations should be of same one or different
No,
organization.
no,
Why? Because
that's what I told you. That's what I told you here. Those may not be same. One is Java, second one is Salesforce. One is mainframe, second one Salesforce. Anything. Okay. But we don't have Java applications. That what I'm taking both are Salesforce organization separate. That's it, nothing else. Now, so now here in this case, how can we implement this one? Now let's see practically. So I want to synchronize the data, real-time integration. I want to do that. It's a common requirement in most of the implementations. Wherever you go in any project, this kind of implementations will be common. Then how can we do that? Okay, the real-time integration by using Oauth authentication. Now, in this case here, what we can do is, for example, inside this provider side, I'm having a web service. Okay, I would like to have a web service over here. Inside the provider side, I would like to have a web service. I would like to create a web service over here. I would like to create a web service inside the provider side. So now what this web service will do, when coming to the web service will be receiving the input. So in order to create the record inside this hiring manager, creating the record, because organization to organization directly to the table we can't connect. There is no such possibility. Directly, we can't connect to the object directly here. We have to interact with the object through a web service only. Okay, through the web service only we can connect to the respective object here. Directly we can't access the data from another organization. From within your organization we can query the data by using SQL queries. But if you want to connect to that table which is available in the another organization, we have only one way, that is web services. Through web service only we can integrate that. So that here this web service will be taking care of the responsibility. This web service will be take care of the responsibility of inserting the record and then getting the response back. So the provider has to provide a web service. Okay, they have to provide a web service. Because directly we can't connect to the table here. Because in his table, what is the table name? What are the columns? But I don't know the table name, column names, nothing. Simply I know the web service name, that's it. That will resource name, that's it. I know that here. That's the path, URL, I know that. Remaining thing will be taken care by that the web service itself. So in this case, now again in this case, like for example, come to a scenario. So every day we are purchasing so many products through online, Amazon, Flipkart, some different the e-commerce applications. So now whenever we are going to be purchasing the products, we have to make the payment. For that one, that e-commerce application is integrated with the banking system, so that they're integrating with the payment gateway. Through the payment gateway only we can connect to that banking systems, and we can able to transfer the money to that respective e-commerce organization people, so that we can buy the products through online. So in this case here, what tables the banking people are using, we don't know. Just we know the payment gateway URL, that's it. Through that URL only they are writing some code to integrate with the banking system. So when the user click on that make payment button, it will be executing some business logic. The business logic is invoking the payment gateway web service. So directly you can go to the banking website, you can transfer the money, you can come back to the application again. So we don't know what tables the banking people are using, we don't know. Just we know the payment gateway URL. That means payment gateway is also one of the web service. And then our institute people are going to keep on sending some SMS notifications to you regarding some new batches, regarding some meeting links, regarding some schedules. Suppose if the session is getting cancelled because of some reason, they're updating to you by sending one SMS. How they are sending the SMS notification? That bulk SMS application they're using. That application internally using a web service, bulk SMS web service. That already told you, previously I told you in our integration classes only. So there is a web service we have used over there. Fast to SMS web service, through which we can send that SMS notification to the people as well. Already we have discussed. Somebody did the implementation also on that here. So upon creating the record, we are sending some SMS here. By using that web service, like the similar way here also, we should have a web service. We should have a web service. Now, whenever I'm going to be creating the record inside this particular organization, then immediately it has to invoke this web service, it has to pass the data. So whatever the hiring manager record they have created over here, it has to pass this data to the web service. The web service will be collecting the data, it will be inserting the record. If you want to insert the record, what is the method we have to use then? In order to insert the record inside this object through web service, so what is the HTTP method that we have to use? We have to use that post method. We have to use that post method. Already we have discussed all the methods of web service. As part of this web services, all the methods we have discussed, like as get method, post method, put method, patch method, delete method. All these methods we have discussed as part of RESTful web services implementation. That already we did. So now in this case, this web service will be receiving some data because it has to do some insertion. That means it has to create one record inside this table. To create the record, it has to pass the name value right, phone value right, email ID right. Yes. So we have to pass the values here. It has to supply the value, then only record will be created over here. So in this case, what needs to be done? These values are coming from where? From the client side. These values are coming from the client side. Now, so in this case, what needs to be done? Okay, in this case, what needs to be done? So as soon as whenever I'm creating a record inside my consumer organization, immediately it has to pass that record information to that web service. The web service will be receiving those values. Based on that, it will be inserting the record inside my object. Okay, now, so now here in this case, okay, now here in this case, okay, now here in this case. Now, how can we implement this one? This is my requirement. Now tell me, how can we implement this solution? When you go to the real-time organizations also, the client will give this kind of requirements. Then they will ask you to prepare a solution. Then what we can do? We have to use Oauth 2.0. Okay, we have to use Oauth 2.0 authentication. Not the normal, not straightforward. It's a Oauth 2.0 authentication. That means Salesforce to Salesforce. You can use anything, any application also, SAP, Java, .NET, mainframe, Oracle, CBEL, anything. Then what we can do? Immediately, I want to do that. There is an authorization server is also available over here. Okay, there is a authorization server is also available over here. In between that, we are having an authorization server also. We are having an authorization server is also available over here. There is an authorization server. Authorization server is also there. Now tell me what we can do. So we have an authorization server. I'm having a web service here. For example, my web service URL is, this is a URL, https some ap16 dot salesforce.com /services apex rest hiring manager service. So this is my web service. This is my service URL, web service URL, which we would like to invoke. This is a web service which I would like to invoke over here. Now tell me how to implement this. Tell me your solutions. It may be right or wrong. Let's express. Now, in this case here, let me explain. So what we can do over here. So now, as soon as whenever I'm going to be creating a record inside my client organization's hiring manager object, whenever I'm going to be inserting a record, now, so whenever I'm creating a record inside my client organization, immediately I want to copy this data over here. I want to invoke this request. So how can we do that here? So now here in this case, what I want to do, I want to create a trigger. Okay, I want to create a trigger. So I would like to create a trigger on the hiring manager object. I would like to create a trigger. I would like to create a trigger on my hiring manager object, like hiring manager trigger. I would like to create a trigger on the hiring manager object, which should be get executed when. So now, as soon as whenever I'm inserting the record, whenever I'm creating a new record, immediately it has to fire. That means after insert. So once a new record has been getting created, my trigger has to be get fired immediately. Okay, my trigger should get fired immediately on my hiring manager object. So I would like to create a trigger on my hiring manager object. I'm creating a trigger on my hiring manager object. So once the trigger has been getting created, what the trigger has to do? Trigger has to connect to the authorization server first. Okay, trigger has to connect to the authorization server. But basically, triggers are basically the triggers are executing within the organization. Okay, triggers are executing within the organization. Then what needs to be done? Triggers are synchronous, but the web services are asynchronous, which are executing automatically based on some requirement. So in this case, what I want to do is here I would like to implement a future method. I would like to implement a future method over here. I would like to implement a future method. Here, what I want to do is I would like to implement a future method. So because here trigger will be synchronous. That means until or unless the trigger execution is not yet completed, we can't initiate any other request. But this is asynchronous. Keep on, I will inserting the record. It will keep on synchronizing to the target organization. That means Abhishek is keep on inserting the record. Then in the background, it will be keep on inserting the same records into the Roshan's account also automatically. Now, so in this case here, I'm going to be creating a future method. I'm creating a future. So what I want to do in this case, now from the trigger, I would like to invoke this future. So whenever I'm inserting a new record inside my hiring manager object, immediately my trigger will fire, and then what the trigger will do, the trigger is going to be invoking this future method. Trigger is going to be invoking this future method. Okay, from the trigger we can invoke future method. Whenever I'm going to be invoking the future method, what the future method will do, future method is going to be getting the access token. Okay, then what the future method will do, future method will be collecting the access token. How it is going to be interacting? Okay, it is going to be interacting with the authorization server. It will connect to that authorization server. So no space. So let me increase this space.
Can't we invoke web service in trigger?
Sorry? Web service you can't invoke directly inside the trigger, because here callouts we can't invoke from the trigger directly. Because web services are asynchronous, triggers are synchronous. Now, in this case, I'm going to be preparing a future method, and then the future method will be getting invoked from the trigger. Trigger is invoking the future method directly. Now, so in this case, what the trigger will do now, the trigger is invoking the future method. The future method is going to be invoking this authorization server. Okay, it is going to be connecting to the authorization server. Simply, I will explain. It will be invoking a request to the authorization server. It will make a request. It will make a request to the authorization server. Authorization server is going to be receiving the request, and based on the request, it is going to be processing this request, and then it will send the response back. It will send the response back. In that response, what we have, in that response, we will be having this access token. You will be getting the response plus access token. You will be getting the response and the access token, so that we need to get the access token first. So for that one, I would like to prepare a small method inside this. I would like to prepare a method. That means as part of this future method, I would like to write some code. Okay, I would like to write some code, get the access token. Get the access token. I would like to collect that access token. So once the access token has been getting connected, okay, once the access token has been getting connected over here. Now, so now these are connected internally. That means here this service provider is going to be internally connected with this authorization server. It is already connected, because already you know these two are already connected over here. Now, whenever if any of the application is connecting to this web service, first of all, they need that access token. So that access token they will be receiving from the authorization server. Now, so in this case, what needs to be done? As soon as whenever I'm creating a record inside my hiring manager object, immediately my trigger will fire. The trigger is going to be invoking a future method. In this future method, first of all, I'm writing some piece of code which will be used to invoke get that access token by connecting to the authorization server. Once the access token has been getting collected, then it has to invoke the actual resource. Then it has to invoke the actual resource. Then it has to invoke the actual resource. Invoke the resource. We have to invoke the actual resource. Now, in this case, it is going to be sending that request over here. In this case, it will be sending a request to the service provider. So here we are going to be passing the request. We are passing the request over here plus access token. And along with access token, what we need to do, we need to send the data also over here. That means input. Okay, input. That means to create the record inside this hiring manager update, if the web service is expecting some input parameters here, some values, we have to pass the name value, phone value, email ID value, all this information we have to supply. And then you will be getting the response over here. Then you will be getting the response. Response plus result. So this is what the implementation process we have to do now. Okay, so this is the implementation process. Whenever if you are going to be invoking the web services immediately, okay, for the immediate replication or the real-time integration, we are using the help of triggers, and along with that, we are using this future methods. These are also called as future callouts. That means we are invoking the callout from future method. Okay, we're invoking the callouts from future methods. So this is what the implementation we have to do now. So this is what the actual solution. Whenever if you want to do the real-time integration, okay, real-time integration, which will be executing over here, okay, which will be executing immediately, which will be replicating immediately at that time, we have to use this triggers and the future callouts. Because within the trigger directly, we can't invoke that web services. Why? Because whenever we are going to be creating the record, trigger will fire. And then if the trigger is having the web service code, so it will be trying to be connecting to the web service. But web service connection will take some time, but trigger can't wait. Trigger can't wait because till the completion of that operation, trigger won't allow you to do any other operation inside your organization. That is a problem. For that reason here, once a trigger has been getting fired, then immediately we are calling the future method. Future methods are executing by placing inside that Salesforce queue, so that here it will be the method will be executing by placing inside the queue. Whenever resources becomes available, the method will execute. It will connect to the authorization server, getting the access token, and then it will be connecting to that respective web service. By passing the input, it will get the response back. That means here from our application side, keep on, we can continue to work our side. Internally in the background, it will be performing the operation by placing inside that Salesforce queue. That's what here we are using this future callouts also as part of your implementation. Now, then how can we implement this? Now let's see practically. So this is the implementation over here. Generally, the people won't take this kind of lengthy examples in the integration sessions also. Simply, they will take one Okay, one example and how to pass, how to retrieve. That's it. But when you go to the real time, you have to explain like this. If they ask any question in the entry point of view, have you worked on the integration or not? Say yes. So what kind of integration we did? We did the REST implementation. So in that one, what is the situation you have faced? Then you can explain this is a scenario. We have one, say our Salesforce application is available over here. This is our Salesforce application, and this is the Java application is available. So as part of our application, or it may be as Java also, .NET also, Salesforce also, SAP also, whatever, anything. So they ask us to integrate this application with the Java application. Okay, Java application. So now in this case, whenever we are creating a record inside our Salesforce application, immediately the same data has to be get copied into Java application also. For that one, they have given one web service to us. So we have used OAuth authentication implementation, and then we have implemented. Then they will raise a question, how did you implement it? What is the steps? So whenever we are creating a record inside the object, we have prepared one trigger over here, which will be firing on our hiring manager object. Once a record is created, immediately a trigger will fire based on the after insert event. It will collect the record information. Once the record information has been collected, then trigger is going to be invoking this future method. Now the future method is going to be collecting this input, and then based on that, it is going to be connecting to the respective authorization server, and then it will be getting the access token. Once access token has been received, then it is going to be invoking the actual web service which has been given by the Java people to us by passing the access token along with that the input parameters also in the form of a JSON, and then we are getting the response over here. Like that, we can able to implement. Okay, then you can say we have used future callouts. That means we are invoking the callout. Callout means what? Invoking web service. Call is going to outside. That means from our Salesforce, we are making a call to outside. Like for example, simple concept. Assume that okay, this is the Roshan, and then this is Abhishek. Abhishek is calling to that Roshan. Then in this case, what we will call as generally both the people are talking over the phone. For Abhishek, what is this call? Outgoing. For where Roshan, this is an incoming call. Like the similar way, outgoing means what? Call is going to outside. So this is called as call out. We are invoking the third-party web services. It is called as callouts. Okay, now, so this is how we are implementing this functionalities over here. Now, so let's see the practical part. How can we implement this? Now tell me what needs to be done as part of this implementation first. First of all, we need two Salesforce organizations first, because both we are taking it as Salesforce organization, because we don't have any Java application, so that here we are taking it as two Salesforce organizations. And then let me explain the steps. As a step one, we need two Salesforce.com organizations. One is for provider, second one is for consumer. Okay, one is for provider, second one is for consumer. Now, for example, I'm taking the same two organizations over here. Provider organization, okay, batch 330 will be the provider, and then batch 331 will be the consumer. Two organizations. As a step two, what needs to be done? Inside the provider, we have to prepare a web service, which is a posting method. Okay, we have to provide a web service over here. So create the web service inside the provider, because here this web service is working with third-party organization. Now, create a web service inside the provider. I'm clearly indicating here. Create a web service to expose to the third-party systems. To expose to the third-party systems. Next. as a step 3. Once the web service has been getting created, suppose if the web service wants to access with the third-party people, what we need to do here? We have to create a connected app. Inside the provider, we have to prepare a connected app. Create a connected app where inside the provider and generate the client ID and the client secret. That means consumer key and the consumer secret. Okay, we have to generate. Next. And the step 4. And the step 4. Inside the provider, create a user record inside the organization. You will get shared to consumer. This is the step 4. Next, the step 5. The provider has to supply all these values, right? Supply the required inputs, input values to the client or the consumer. What are the input parameters they have to supply? They have to supply the client ID. It is also called as consumer key. And the client secret is also called as consumer secret. Third one, username and password. Username and password. And the fourth one, web service resource URL. That means endpoint. Web service endpoint URL. So based on this endpoint URL only, they can able to consume that. Next. So up to this, we are done with the provider side. We have created a hiring manager object also inside this, and we have created one web service also, which is a post method over here, which will be receiving some input parameters, and based on that, it is going to be receiving the input parameters and will be inserting the record inside this object. And then they're generating a connected app, and then generate the client ID and the client secret and the username and the password and this web service URL. They have to pass all this information to the third-party organization. Now, so now what the consumer will do now? The consumer is going to receiving this input parameters supplied by the provider. Now, in this case, inside the consumer, step 6, inside the consumer. Consumer, what they will do right now over here? Inside that consumer, what they will do? So now as part of this consumer should use this above information and then authorized by the authorization server and to get that access token. Now, consumer should get the access token by connecting to the authorization server. By connecting to the authorization server, by passing the required input, by passing the required input parameters. And then, after that, step 7. Now, once the access token has been received by the consumer, it should invoke the web service. It should invoke the web service based on the endpoint URL by passing the input parameters for the web service. Okay. Once access token has been received, okay, by the consumer, it should invoke the web service based on the endpoint URL. Okay, based on the endpoint URL by passing the input parameters to the web service. So these are the steps which we have to follow in this case. Now, this is also at the consumer side. Now, these are the steps we need to follow. Now let's see each and every step one by one. For example, I'm taking two organizations over here as a step one. These are the two organizations. Training batch 330@some.cis.com. Okay, this is a provider organization. Now let me log in into the provider organization over here. I want to use this provider organization by login from Firefox or some Chrome also, whatever. Let's go with the same process, no problem. Let me go to that organization. I'm logging into that provider. Now, let me go back to that classic version of Salesforce. Now this is my provider organization, okay, AP15. Now, so here I'm having a hiring manager object. This is the hiring manager object that we have. These are the fields are there: hiring manager, okay, name and the location and the contact number and the email. So these are the four fields are available here inside my hiring manager object. Now, so now in this case here, what I want to do right now, let me explain. So now here I would like to create a web service which will be receiving the input parameters and it is going to be inserting the record inside my hiring manager object. So let me create a web service inside my organization. We are having the provider. Inside the provider, I need to create a web service. Now here I'm indicating. It should receive input parameters from the third-party system and will create a new record inside the hiring manager object. Inside the hiring manager object. So I'm going to be creating a web service over here. So let me create a web service. Go to the developer console. Now I'm creating a web service. Hiring manager record service. I'm creating a web service. You know that. First of all, we have to make that web service class as global. We have to give the resource name. This is the resource. I'm giving the URL mapping. URL mapping equals to slash hiring manager service. I'm indicating this resource name as hiring manager service. Now I'm preparing a method. What type of method? Post method. So I'm indicating HTTP post. Global static. I want to return some parameters also, whether the record is inserted or not. Insert new HR record. Insert new HR record. So in order to insert the new HR record, what are all the parameters are required? It requires some name. So here I'm passing some parameters. String HR name. String HR city. String HR phone. String HR email. So these are the 4 parameters. So based on these 4 parameters, that means these 4 parameters we have to supply. Okay, these 4 parameters you have to supply from the client side in the form of JSON format. So now once these values have been getting received, then I am going to be passing these values to my record fields so that I can create a record here. So I'm creating the object of the hiring manager class. Hiring manager HR record equals to new hiring. I'm passing the values. HR record dot equals to HR. So whatever the parameter we have received, this value I'm passing to the name field. HR record dot location. I'm passing that HR city. HR record dot email. I'm passing that HR email. HR record dot contact number. HR4. And then I'm inserting the record here. Insert HR record. And then I want to return. Inserted. Or simply some success. Okay. Now. So record ID also we can able to return, no problem over here. Inserted. Or simply we can return some success. Record has been inserted successfully. Now. Now. So now in this case, we are going to be creating a new hiring manager record. So whatever the parameters has been supplied by the third-party organization at runtime, so now it will be receiving those parameters. Based on those parameters, it is creating a new HR record inside my hiring manager object. So as a step 2, we have created the web service also. Because inside this provider, it has to provide a web service also over here. This is the web service which we have implemented right now. We are done with that web service implementation also. Next. And we have to create a connected app over here. Okay, let me place this code inside your document. Next. So we have to prepare a connected app and generate the client ID in the client. So already you know how to create a connected app. In the previous session already we have discussed. So this is the way. The same client ID, client secret I'm using because the same organization I'm using, right? So here also we can use that same client ID in the client secret. Client ID is available, client secret is available. We have to provide the username and the password also. Already we have the username and the password. The same thing I'm taking it over here. As a step 4, we are having username and the password here. This is the password. And then supply all this information to the consumer. So these are the 5 steps we have to do at the provider side. First of all, we have to create a web service inside the organization over here. And then that web service should be a post method. Previously, we have used get method, but here we are using post method here. Post method, so which will be receiving the input parameters, and then based on those parameters, it will be inserting the record inside my object. So that to connect to this particular web service, okay, they have to pass some parameters over here, so that those parameters also we are exposing, indicating over there. Now, the web service URL we are passing the client ID and the client secret, username, and the password. Now let's come to the consumer side. Inside the consumer side, we are going to be implementing the actual functionality over here. This is the hiring manager object is available. On this hiring manager object, I would like to create a trigger on this one, which will be collecting the records, and based on that, it is going to be invoking the respective future. Now, let's see here how can we implement this. So let's go to the consumer side. Consumer is what? That is training.batch 331. Let me log in into that organization by using that Firefox browser. I'm logging into the Firefox browser now.
Feroz will do any WSDL generation for
No, no, no,
this.
no. Because REST implementation doesn't require any WSDL.
That
WSDLs
is
are
only
very
for
old
soup, right?
concept. Only for SOAP. That is very old
Okay, okay.
concepts. Nobody is using WSDLs right now. Everything will be purely the RESTful web services. For RESTful web services, we are getting a new advanced feature that is called as microservices. Microservices are advanced than RESTful, but RESTful is the latest one right now. Microservices are still in implementation stage. When moving forward, okay, after 3 to 4 years, you will be getting completely microservices. You will not have any RESTful, okay, purely microservices at that time. Okay, SOAP is very old. Nobody will be using that SOAP. When you go to that application, most of the application, 99% of the applications are purely using REST implementation, because REST is very lightweight, very easy to implement, very faster also in terms of performance. And that too, it will support every applications. But SOAP will be supporting only few applications, not all. That's the problem. So now let me log in into my client organization. So I'm waiting for receiving this verification code. Now, I have logged into my client organization. So now here also, I would like to have the hiring manager object. There is an object is available. This is my hiring manager object. Here also I'm having some fields are available. Hiring manager name, location, contact number, email ID, the fields are available. Now what we need to do as part of this implementation, we have to create a trigger on this hiring manager object. So let me create a trigger. I'm going to the developer console. I'm creating a trigger, new Apex trigger. I'm giving the trigger name as sync HR details. I'm creating a trigger with the name sync HR details trigger, HR records trigger. I'm creating the trigger on the hiring manager object. Select the object name on which you are going to be creating the trigger. I'm creating the trigger on hiring manager object. So specify the trigger name and then object name. Click on submit. The trigger will be getting prepared over here. So trigger name on object name. So this is the trigger which I'm creating on this hiring manager object, which will be getting fired. When you want to fire this trigger over here, I want to fire the trigger on after insert, not before. So that here, once the record has been created, I'm indicating it as after insert. Once the record has been getting created, immediately I would like to fire the trigger. Then I would like to check the conditions first. If trigger dot is after and trigger dot is insert. If it is after insert, what I want to do, I would like to collect the hiring manager records information, and then that record information I want to pass to my future method. So the future method will be receiving those records, and then it is going to be collecting the data over here. So in this case here, what we can do now? So I need to prepare a future method right now. Okay, I would like to prepare a future method right now. Then how can we prepare the future method? Now let's see practically in this case. Now, for that one, I would like to create a separate class. Okay, I would like to create a separate class. I'm preparing an Apex class. I'm indicating synchronize HR records helper. I'm creating a class with the name synchronize HR records helper. Inside this class, I would like to prepare a method here. I would like to prepare a future method. So as part of this future method, first of all, what we need to do, inside this future method, we have to write the code to collect the access token. Okay, we have to collect that access token over here. Then how to get the access token? Already, you know, in the previous session, already we have implemented the code in order to collect the access token over there. In order to collect the access token, whatever the method is required, that method already we have implemented in the previous session. So let me copy that same method over here also. Like in the previous session, we have prepared here. This is the get case details method. And then we have prepared a method called as get access token. This is the access token method which we have received, we have prepared. So let me copy this method over here. I'm using the same. Here I'm making this method as static string get access token. Now, so we are having the client ID, client is secret, username, and the password is, this is the password here. And then we are going to be connecting to the authorization server by using this respective URL. We are passing the required parameters like as granted type, client ID, client is secret, username, and the password. We are passing all these 5 parameters to that authorization server. Based on that, we are going to be collecting the response. That means in that response, we are having the access token. That access token value I'm collecting over here. So now we are ready with the method to collect the access token. So now here we are done with the getting the access token method. Now what we need to do once access token has been getting received, because without the access token we can't connect to the actual web service. So now here in this case what needs to be done, we have to implement the future method. Through this future method we are going to be invoking the third-party web service. Then, so I would like to prepare a future method over now I'm preparing a future method. This method is used to invoke the actual web service to synchronize HR records into the provider. So for that one, I'm preparing a method. Public static void sync HR cards. Sync HR cards. But this method I'm going to be indicating like as a future method. So I'm indicating at the rate future annotation. At the rate future. Like as at the rate rest resource we are using at the rate future. That means at the rate future means what? This method will not be executing immediately. This method will be placing inside the Salesforce queue, and whenever resources becomes available, it will be executing. Future means okay after few minutes also, seconds also, immediately also. Whenever Salesforce resources becomes available, immediately it will be executing. Till that time, it will be placing inside that Salesforce queue. So through this one, what I want to do, I want to invoke a web service. If you want to invoke the web service through future method, we have to use a parameter called as callout equals to true. If you are making this future method callout equals to true, then only this future method will allows you to invoke the web services here, or else it won't allow. Now, so for this future method here, I'm going to passing the HR record information. String HR record details. String HR record details. So I'm passing the string parameter over here. I want to verify if HR record details is not equals to null. That means if the parameter is not null and HR record details is not equals to empty. That means if the parameter value is not null and not empty, then first of all, what we need to do, we need to collect the access token over here. For that one, I'm defining a variable string access token. String access token. Here I'm going to indicate it. Access token equals to, how can we collect that access token? Get access token method. With the help of this method, by invoking this method, get the access token first. So once the access token has been getting received, then what we can do, we need to write the code to invoke the actual resources server. Write the code to invoke the actual web service by connecting to the resources server. By connecting to the resources server. In this case here, what we can do now? So in this case, we have to use that same endpoint URL we need over here. Okay, we need that endpoint URL. String HR endpoint URL. So what is the URL over here? This is the web service we have created, right? So this is the web service we have created. So what is this endpoint URL right now? It will be having the endpoint URL. Let me place it here. HTTPS ap15.salesforce.com/services/apex rest/ what is that resource name? Hiring manager service. So this is the resource name. This is the endpoint URL to which I would like to connect. Okay, this is the actual resource here to which you would like to invoke. Now let's prepare that HTTP classes. HTTP HR HTTP equals to new HTTP, and then HTTP request HR request equals to new HTTP request. Here I would like to pass the parameters. HR request dot set body. What is that body type over here? This is the post method. Sorry, so this is not the body. So we need to pass the body over here. So what is that body over here? So whatever the HR record details we have received, these details I'm going to pass in over here. But these details we have to pass in the form of JSON. How to prepare? I will show you. You know that concept already. HR record, sorry, HR request dot set method. What is the method type? Which web service you are invoking? I'm invoking this web server. This web service will be of method type as what? Post. So that we have to pass the method name as post. Okay, we are going to be indicating that this is the post method over here. And then after that, we have to specify the endpoint URL. HR request dot set endpoint. So what is the endpoint URL? This is the HR endpoint URL for me. Next, HR request set header. Set header. So now here in this case, I am going to be indicating that. Authorization. Authorization will be of type what? Oauth. Oauth space access token. So already we have received the access token. This is the access token over here. Next, HR request. HR request dot set header. Here we are going to passing the input parameters to that particular web service in the form of what we have to indicate. I'm indicating this. Content type. What type of content you are passing over here to the web service in the form of JSON, so that we can specify application/JSON. That all it told you during the JSON format. Here the internet media type is application/JSON. So that means I'm informing to the web service, boss, I'm passing the input parameters to you because you are expecting some input parameters over here. So the 4 parameters you are expecting, like as HR name, city, phone, and the email. These values I'm passing to you in the form of JSON. Okay, I'm passing these values to you in the form of JSON. So that here we are going to be informing to that the third-party web service that I'm passing the content in the form of a type called as application/JSON. So please consider this a JSON request and then parse it and then place inside the fields and insert a new record over there. And then we need to send that request over here. HTTP response. HR response equals to, I'm going to be indicating this. New HTTP response. And then send that here. HR response equals to HR HTTP dot send HR request. And then we can represent this response information. System.debug HR record insertion status HR response dot get body. I'm going to be collecting the body. So this is a future method which we have implemented. Now, so as part of this future method here, this is the future method which I have implemented. Future method should be always a static method. It doesn't return any value, so that I'm indicating the return type as void, and then it is receiving the HR record information in the form of JSON. Then how to pass these values to the JSON format? You will see now. Inside the trigger, we have to write that code. How to prepare the JSON format of preparation? That already you know. We have used a class called as JSON generator class. You know JSON generator class, you know JSON parser class also, both. Then by using the JSON generator class, I would like to generate the JSON format and I would like to prepare that content over here. Now, so in this case here, so whenever if you are going to be invoking this web server, invoking this future method. So now from where we need to invoke this future method we have to invoke from trigger. So then how to invoke that, how to pass the values we'll see. Let's go to the trigger. Inside this trigger, we are receiving the records over here. Whatever the records we're receiving, those records will be available inside a context variable dot trigger dot. So now here for each and every hiring manager, HR record from trigger dot name. So that means whatever the records you are inserting into this hiring manager object, each and every record will be available inside the trigger.new context variable. And from there, whatever the HR record is available, get the HR record details and prepare the JSON format for record. Whatever the HR record that you are receiving, we need to create the JSON format of that HR record here. How to prepare this JSON format of response, create JSON format of HR record? Now let's see. So now in this case, whenever I'm going to be creating a new HR record, it will collect the name value, phone value, email ID, contact number, and based on that, I'm going to preparing the JSON format. Then how can we do that now? Let's see. For that one, we are using the class called as system.json generator. Already you know. JSON generator, I'm indicating HR generator. Object name equals to system.json create generator of I'm creating the object of that JSON generator class. Once the JSON generator class is available, then how to pass this information? We have to pass this information in the form of JSON format. That means we have to prepare that starting of the object, ending of the object. Here we have to write like as a name parameter. Name parameter will be having like as some Ram Kumar and comma, and then second parameter here. What is the second parameter we have to indicate? What are the parameters are there? These are the parameters are available. HR name, we have to pass a HR name. City, HR city, we need to pass a city value. HR phone, we need to pass a value. HR email, we have to pass a value. These are the parameter names are available here. But these parameters we have to pass, like as HR name, HR city. Like that, we have to pass a value. How can we prepare this response? We can now let's see. I'm indicating this. HR generator dot write start object. Okay, write start object. That means first of all, we have to write the starting object, right? Write start. And then write end object. Nothing but I'm writing the starting of the object braces, nothing but slashing flower braces. HR generator dot write end object. Okay, so with this one, I'm going to be writing the starting of that object over here. In this one, we are going to be writing that ending of this object. In between that, we have to write that, right? We have to write that content here, nothing but key value, key value, key value we have to write. Then how can we do that now? Let's see. Then how can we do that now? Let's see. So now in this case, I'm indicating HR generator write string field. Okay, write string field. So what is the parameter name field name? So that is nothing but HR name. Whatever the parameter name we have given inside the web service, the same parameter name we have to supply. HR name. Where is the values available? This is available inside my record. HR record dot name. Okay. So whatever the parameter values available in the HR record, I'm collecting this. Next. HR generator. Write string field. What is the second parameter over here? I'm going to pass this. HR city. I'm passing the value. HR record dot location. City means location field. Location field value I'm passing over here. HR generator dot write string. So what is the next parameter? We have to pass a phone number. HR phone. What is the value? HR record dot contact. HR generator dot write string. What is the next parameter? HR email. HR record dot email. I'm going to passing all these values over here. So once the values have been getting supplied, then it is preparing the JSON format of response here. Once the JSON format of response has been getting prepared, then pass this JSON content. Pass the JSON content to future model to sync the record with provider. Then we need to pass this value here. Then how can we pass this value? So we are going to be passing this value over here. Now, so what is this class name here? Synchronize HR records helper. Synchronize HR records helper dot. What is that method name over here? The method name is sync HR records. Here we need to pass a value. So HR generator dot get as string. So whatever the JSON format we have prepared, I want to collect this JSON format over here, and then the JSON format I want to collect it as a string format, and the string parameter I would like to pass to my future method. I'm passing these values to my string parameter. That's it. We're done with this implementation right now. Okay. Now, so what we did in this case in the provider side, let me explain. In the provider side, what we did, first of all, we have collected the two organizations, source and the target. In the provider side, we have the hiring manager. In the client side, also we have the hiring. Both are having same objects. In the provider side, we have created a web service over here. This is the web service, which will be receiving some parameters, and based on that, it is inserting the record inside my hiring manager object. So to invoke this web service, okay, we need some input parameters, okay, to the client side. So Abhishek has received the client ID, client is secret, username, password, end-point URL, that means web service, and then what type of method it is, what are the parameters we need to supply. They have given the whole information. So Abhishek has received that. So he has created one trigger on this hiring manager object. He has created a trigger on the hiring manager object, which will be collecting the HR records. Whatever the HR records he has created right now, so now it will collect that HR record here, and then it is going to be converting the HR record information in the form of the JSON format. So once the JSON format has been getting prepared, this JSON format it is passing to the future method. Now what the future method will do? Future method is going to be collecting this HR record information in the form of a string. Now it will verify whether the HR record details are available or not. If the HR record details are available, then it will be collecting the access token. And then based on that access token, it is going to be connecting to the actual resources service. And then it is going to be passing this HR details. It will be inserting the record inside that. This is what the process we have implemented right now. Now let me test it right now. Now, so this is a hiring manager, which is in provider. This is the consumer, hiring manager. I'm creating a new record. So now give me a new name, like as a HR person name, so that we can able to create a new record inside this. Any name. So let me take one name, like as some Anurag Singh. I want to create a new HR record with the name Anurag Singh inside my consumer. Whenever I'm creating the record inside the consumer, immediately the same record has to be inserting into my provider also. Now, Anurag Singh, contact number some value, location some Mumbai, email ID anurag@some gmail.com. Click on save. As soon as once you click on the save button, my record has been getting created. Once the record is created, immediately it will fire the trigger. Trigger is going to be collecting this hiring manager record. It will be converting the HR record into the JSON format, passing this information to that future method. Future method will be collecting the details. It is going to be inserting into the hiring manager of the provider. Let's go to the provider. See. Refresh this user interface. See. Anurag Singh record has been created successfully. That means whenever I'm creating over there, it will be syncing into that other organizations also automatically. Like for example, I'm going to be creating one more. Let me take some Asit Kumar Mohanty. So let me go to my provider, so the consumer. I'm creating like some Asit Kumar Mohanty. Contact number, I'm giving some value. Location, I'm giving like some Hyderabad. Email ID, some like some Asit Kumar @some gmail.com. Click on save. Once you click on save, it is creating the record over here, Asit Kumar Mohanty. Same record, it has to sync into my provider also. Let's go to the hiring manager. So we have received this Asit Kumar Mohanty record is also has been created. This is how we can able to sync the data. This is called as real-time integration in Salesforce. So we can connect with any third-party applications also. The possibilities are. Okay. So these are the various features which we are using in the real-time as part of integration process.
Sir,
Yes.